Welcome back to Grassroots Media. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Malone Tracker Service Evan Monroe Show, presented by Critters Corner, where we cover everything on the range with the West Greene Buffaloes football team. As always, I'm joined here with head coach Evan Monroe. For once, we're on the range.
On the range, baby.
Literally on the range out here. It feels good today.
It does.
If I want to take a line from my namesake Joe Nichols, it's sunny and 75 outside
Sunny
today.
and 75. Hard to beat this weather, man.
And it feels good. I'm sure you're in a good mood too.
Absolutely.
Whenever we get to talk about a Buffalo win, you're always in a better mood. It's also a team that, as a head coach and maybe as an acting coach on West Greene's roster, you hadn't beat so far, and that's the Chuckey-Doak Black Knights. It had been since 2019 since the West Greene Buffaloes had beaten the Chuckey-Doak Black Knights. You went into Lower Afton, made a statement by shutting them out in the second half and picking up a win. How good did it feel walking out of the black hole with a victory Friday night?
More relief than anything, you come in after last week, or the week before now, and you kind of lay a goose egg at home. You kind of sit back and you're like, okay, who are we as a team?
Yeah.
Like, what's our identity? We just got our butts kicked. So to see us come out, play football like I know we're capable of playing, come out with a win in a great environment, I was tickled to death. You can't. Anytime you beat a county rival, man, it's always a good time.
And that was one of the questions I asked last week: is how do you respond after that Cloudland game? That was one of the, if not most perfect ways you could respond, by going into enemy territory against a county rival and pick up a win over a team that those seniors had never beaten before.
No. You go into a game like that, you've not beat that bunch in a long time. Guys are hungry to beat them. They kind of embarrassed us a little bit last year here. So, we kind of had that little chip on our shoulder going into the game like, hey, this is time to go beat this bunch. And so for us to line down and do what we do and take care of business and come out with a win, man, very pleased with that.
Things were a lot different from the Cloudland game to the Chuckey-Doak game, obviously. You look at the scoreboard, you look at one resulted in a loss, one resulted in a win. It's the last time I'm going to say this, I promise.
Definitely difference in scoreboards that one worked and one didn't.
Cloudland game, 30 total yards, I promise. Last time I'm going to mention
Please
that.
don't mention that anymore.
Chuckey-Doak game, 365 yards of total offense, a 335-yard difference. Things were clicking that game. Things changed around a little bit. I don't know if we really alluded to it last week, but there's a change at quarterback.
Yeah.
Austin Brown, a freshman, got his first start in only his third high school game. You moved Austin Brown out to a wideout, got him some more touches in that department, had a huge 69-yard touchdown that resulted in one of the big plays in the second half. Talk about that adjustment on offense a little bit. I know a lot of people were maybe surprised to see a new quarterback. I know Chuckey-Doak might have been, because that's probably not what they prepared for. So talk about that strategy of changing things up a little bit.
I'm sure there's some Chuckey-Doak guys that watch this, especially on the game week that we're playing them. So I was going to keep that card in my pocket. I wasn't going. As
a lot of coaches do. I don't know if a lot of coaches would really tip their pitches, as you would say, and kind of release exactly everything that's going to happen.
I'm going to keep that card in my pocket close to me. Austin's a kid that had come in a couple times in the first couple games, and Franklin goes down with a cramp, or he gets something crazy happens. He just needs a play. Brown has went in and played. Me and Hahn had talked about it in length. We felt it was a good week to turn him loose. Kind of opened up our offense a little bit. First 2 weeks we were very one-dimensional. I think this is the first time in a long time we had more passing yards than rushing yards.
Yes.
We had almost 200 in the air, which it's been a couple, probably, I don't think we had that many in a single game last year. If we did, it was pretty close. So for us to come out and be able to throw the ball, keep guys from just putting man-to-man on the outside and 10 in the box or 9 in the box or whatever, makes that running game just a little easier to run through. Cloudland was physical, but they had 9 guys in the box, and we couldn't hit water if we fell out of a boat. So, we felt like this week was a good week to switch it up. And, I'm glad we did. Austin's a freshman, but, man, he doesn't play like it. He's got a lot of charisma for a freshman. The bright lights don't scare him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he was out there slinging balls around left. I mean, I think he finished 7 of 10 or 7 of 11.
7 of 11, 198, 2 tutties.
That's not a bad night for a freshman,
especially in your debut.
Yes, and I think some of the ones that he missed on wasn't by much. His passes were on time. One of the passes he hit McCamey with. McCamey ran a little hitch route. McCamey no more than comes out of his break, and I mean the ball's there. He has to go up and get it, but the corner kind of bailed a little, and it was just enough space for him to bang one in there. And man, that's impressive for a freshman to be on time with that. We worked with him a lot last week on his timing, making sure he's getting the ball out of his hands quick and not holding on to it. Trying to give him some passing route combos that are easy reads for him. So very pleased with Austin and his progress from even Cloudland week to this week. Gives us a chance to have Austin Franklin back out in space where he's comfortable, and he doesn't take as much of a pounding trying to squeeze it up in there. Lets him use his ability to make guys miss in space. Makes us a little bit better on offense.
One thing I had here in my notes, if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to, but I was told it was a penalty fest on Friday night. 25 total penalties for 229 yards. If you like to just disregard that, we can move forward with that. But
I do want to say, it was a very chippy game.
As you would expect in a county rivalry like that.
And honestly, 25 was probably a low number. It probably could have been closer to 35. There was some stuff that they let go, and I was thankful for because it should have been on us. And there was a couple on Chuckey-Doak they let go. So, it's one of those things. It was a sloppy game. We had way too many dumb penalties. We had a running into the punter on one and give him a first down and then stopped him again and then had another dumb personal foul. I think there was one drive we had 3 penalties that let them move we gave them 45 yards.
Yeah.
It was dumb, just dumb football. So that's something we're going to work on this week is cutting out those dumb penalties. Some corrective conditioning for a couple guys that are continually making the same dumb decisions. So hopefully that fixes a little bit of that this week. But, it was a penalty fest, and it was chippy, and it was physical. And, sometimes when it gets physical and chippy, some guys can handle it, some guys can't. And, you have reactions to things, and it was on both sides of the ball. So we got to keep our composure a little better, and that's all I really want to say about that.
I'm sure that'll be one of the keys to the Eagleton game once we get into the second half and talk about
absolutely.
that. So
yes.
I'll keep that in the back of my mind. What are your 2 keys to the game this week? Because that'll probably go ahead and be one of them. But we talked about how you had more passing yards than rushing yards in a game. Normally with West Greene, that's not the case, as you mentioned, but still a great game by Skylar Shelton. 22 rushes for 88 yards is what I had, which is an exact 4 yards per rush, and he ended up with 2 touchdowns, two huge touchdowns that happened in the first half. I want to parlay both of those together where you talk about his performance and how big that first half boost was to go out 13-0. You get that 6-yard touchdown run to put you up 7-0. You get a fumble recovery that led to his next 14-yard touchdown run. You go up 13-0, and when a lot of people saw that score, including myself, I was a little surprised because I'm like, wow, West Greene jumping out to a 13-0 lead. It had been the exact opposite the first 2 games. You had gotten down 16-0 to North Greene, and you had fallen behind the Cloudland. So things turned around this time. How big of a spark was it to have Skylar have such a great dynamic first half?
Skylar isn't able to do what he was able to do without those big boys up front.
Absolutely. We talked about that week 1 with North Greene.
He runs hard, but he's not a game breaker. He's a 3-yard, a cloud of dust kind of back. He's not going to outrun very many people. But offensive line controlled the line of scrimmage those first 2 drives.
Yeah.
I don't know if they were ready for how ready we were to come out and play like our hair was on fire. And so we didn't do nothing fancy. We lined it down how we normally run, and we pounded it at them. And, Skylar had a great cutback on the one. I think it was the 14-yarder. Everything kind of got kicked out, and there was a nice little crease. So he puts his cleat in the ground, gets upfield, gets north to south, and scored. It was a great cut by him. But, all of our offensive success starts in the trenches.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have any kind of offensive success if you don't have those big boys up front taking care of business. So I kind of challenged those boys this week and said, hey, we only had 30 yards offense last week. Let's fix it this week. I said, y'all are more important and too good to only give us 30 yards. And so
and you had that after the first drive.
Yeah. So they kind of was like, they took it as a personal challenge to say, all right, we're going to go take care of business tonight. And I'm glad they did. One thing I wasn't real pleased with was, after we go up 13, we kind of let our foot off the gas.
That's the conversation I was going to get into next. Was how was that conversation in the locker room? Because you go up 13-0, you allow 2 touchdowns, and you go into the half tied 13-13, where you're feeling good. You don't necessarily feel like you're cruising after you get up 13-0, but you did let the foot off the gas a little bit. So whenever that happened, what was the conversation like?
I just told them, it's a long ball game. We have to stay focused. We get a team down, we can't ease up on them.
Yeah.
We got to go finish. Second half, we come out and played like our hair was on fire again. We still had some sloppy stuff happen, but overall our effort was there and good enough to give us the win. The quarterback, Dom, he's a dynamic athlete. He pulled on that long run, man. He pulled it, made our outside linebacker jump inside for half a second, and that was all he needed to just, and he was gone, and we wasn't catching him. So that was one thing. It was an effort play a little bit. Could have had some better pursuit, and that was one of the things I wasn't real pleased with at halftime. We talked about was, we got to play with every play with great effort. Can't take plays off. Can't cruise just because we're up. It's still a close ball game. We've got to go finish. And so, that's all I told them was, hey, it's 0-0. Let's go win this half. We win this half, we win the ball game. And so we come out and, change possessions a couple times. We finally get that big safety, and then we just kind of put our foot on the gas and kept it there. So
I wanted to talk about those 2 late scores too, because after you get that safety, you go up 15-13. That's when the 69-yard strike from Austin Brown to Austin Franklin happened.
Yeah.
And then you go up 22-13. Being up 9, sort of comfortable. It's 2 possessions technically, but you still want to be up by more than that, and you did so with Alex Johnson in the fourth quarter, that 30-yard receiving touchdown that puts you up for the winning margin. So talk about those 2 plays. I want to talk about Austin and Alex's touchdowns, because you come out of halftime, you get that safety, things change a little bit, but things don't change until they put those 2 on the board.
Yeah.
How huge were those 2 moments?
Oh, they're huge. It feels kind of cheap to say Austin had a 69-yard touchdown pass, and really he didn't throw it more than me to you.
Yeah.
He gave him the little quick pitch on the jet. Counts as a pass.
It does.
It counts, so we're going to count it.
And it counts as a throw.
It does. It's hard to miss that throw. But, Austin Franklin does what Austin Franklin does. He made a guy miss, and then he just outran everybody else to the end zone. And it's kind of funny. You go on film, and Skyler was supposed to be blocking, and he just kind of stands back and watches. And about the time you see Frankie hit the edge, Skyler's hands go up. He's like this, and then he just waving him on to the end zone. It was pretty funny to see on film, because Frankie wasn't even to like the 40-yard line yet. And so to see Skyler doing that, I'm like, I'm glad they know that Frankie's a pretty special athlete.
Yeah.
But, Franklin doing what he does, man, great things happen when the ball's in his hands. Giving him the ball in space it makes coaching pretty easy. It's like, hey, let's go flip one out to number 2 and let him go make some guys miss. Let's let Frankie go make a play.
Absolutely.
We threw a couple other deep balls to him that really put us in good position. That he just went up and high-pointed off a kid. So, Franklin is what Franklin is. He's a great athlete. That throw was special. The throw wasn't nothing special, but the run after was very special. But the throw to Alex, man, that was a dot. That was beautiful.
I was told.
It was beautiful. He kind of had a safety and a corner behind him, and Austin Brown threw it, just a beautiful ball, hits him right here in the hands. A-Rod catches it, rolls on top of it, holds on to it, touchdown. And he threw it exactly where only A-Rod could go get it.
Yeah.
The corner safety didn't have a chance to make a play on the ball. So for a freshman to throw a deep ball about 35 yards, whatever it was after his drop, 30 yards officially, but to be able to put it in put it in the trash can, the drill where they just drop it in the trash can. For a freshman to be able to do that on a Friday night game, it's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
It's pretty nice to have a freshman quarterback that I know I'm going to have for 3 more years that's only going to get bigger and stronger.
It brings a lot of excitement to you.
It does. So his ability to kind of thread the needle, man, it's for a freshman to come in and his first start and dropping darts on him, man, it's fun to watch.
And we talked about how do you respond after the Cloudland game. You certainly did so with that win over Chuckey-Doak. And it came at a perfect time, too, because even though Chuckey-Doak is a non-region opponent, you get that win under your belt against a county opponent. I don't even have to ask you how much that raises your confidence, because I know that raises everybody's confidence up more from how you responded after that Cloudland game, walking into that Chuckey-Doak game, beating them with over 300 yards of offense with a brand-new starting quarterback that's a freshman. Now you've got Eagleton.
Yeah.
Officially your first region game.
Yeah.
Going into it about as hot as you could, I guess you could say, with that win over Chuckey-Doak. I know you could definitely go in a little hotter. That's always the case in football and sports, but looks like you're clicking at the right time, too. You've got Eagleton coming up. We'll go ahead and take a break first before we preview that game in the second half, though. So stay with us. We'll be right back after these messages to talk about that here on Grassroots Media.
Pizza Inn offers contactless buffet to go with JoJo's Family Feast or anything on our menu for carryout. We also honor birthday parties and cater to businesses and large events. We make it easy. Call us today. Pizza Inn Greenville.
For more than 30 years, Tommy's Plumbing has served customers in East Tennessee with licensed and professional plumbing services. From installing your new faucet to replacing your existing piping system, our team at Tommy's Plumbing is trained to handle the job with professionalism, attention to detail, and integrity. By offering warranties on most products installed by our technicians, Tommy's Plumbing stands behind our work, ensuring that your plumbing needs are not only met, but that your problem is solved for the long term. When you need reliable and professional plumbing service, Tommy's is the only call to make. So give us a call today and let us show you the Tommy's difference.
Welcome back to Grassroots Media. Welcome back to this week's edition of the Malone Director Service Evan Monroe Show, presented by Critters Corner, where we cover everything on the range with the West Greene Buffaloes football team. As always, I'm joined here with head coach Evan Monroe. So you come back to the range this week.
Yep.
Second time this season. Hopefully looking for a better performance on the range this time.
Yes.
Because not only was the last one a little bit subpar, but it's the most important game up to date now.
Yes.
You've got Eagleton coming up. It's your first regional opponent of the season. It's a game that ended with a little bitterness last year, of course, when you went down there and played them for the first time. So talk about this year's edition of that game. I'm not going to call it a rivalry game, even though looking at last year's game and maybe how this year's game plays out, it might turn into that. But what do you expect when you go into that Eagleton game Friday night?
That was a game I thought we should have won last year. Like, we were very capable of winning that one. Too many mistakes, too many turnovers, shot ourselves in the foot too many times. So, it was a game I felt like we should have won. It was a game that kept us out of the playoffs. If we win that one, we're in. We're fourth in the region. It's this week is definitely focused on this one, making sure we take care of business this week. These guys have to understand that these region games are what makes or breaks us for the playoffs. If we are trying to get back to the playoffs and compete for region titles here at West Greene, this is a game we have to have. So I don't think I can overstate how important this game is to us to come out Friday night with our hair on fire and play like I know we can play. Put a full game together and not just a half here, a quarter there.
Yeah.
We got to play it a full 4 quarters together.
And I know that's something that every single coach will tell you, every single player and fan will tell you, but a lot of people don't really grasp the idea. You have to win that first region game.
Yes.
And I think one perfect example that we could bring up was that scenario last year. You lose that Eagleton game, which was your first region game. Well, you think, well, we've got 4 other region games that we can make up. As long as we win those or win 2 of them or win so many, it's okay. But you lose that Eagleton game, and like you said, it was the game that kept you out of the playoffs last year. You don't know which region game is going to be the one that keeps you out of the playoffs until it's the end of the season and you reflect on the season. So it's important as all of them, but it's the first one, of course. Yeah. So it's got to be won. It's a game, like we said, that ended with a little bit of bitterness last year, where it was a chippy game last year. So I know that some of those guys that are returning from both teams last year are going to have that on their mind a little bit too. Do you kind of seek that revenge or kind of see it as a revenge game going into this year?
I wouldn't say a revenge game, but a game that we know is important.
Yeah.
They didn't lose hardly anybody. They were where they're a newer school. I don't think they had any but a couple seniors that.
I think the only ones might have been transfer students.
Yeah, like they were co-op kids or something like that. They weren't nothing. Their key players are all back.
Yes.
This may be one of, if not the best quarterback we'll see all year. Kid can sling it around the field. Big, tall kid. They've got one of the best defensive linemen we'll see all year. They're a good team. They're improved from last year. Their skill guys are pretty good. So we'll have a challenge for us this week to come out and play hard. But I think we can go in and give ourselves a chance if we play like I know we can play.
And then, of course, also it's the second year that they've been a program. So it's the second time that you'll have played them too. What are some of the things that you expect from last year's game? What are some of the things on offense that you expect them to run?
They kind of switched their offensive scheme up a little bit.
Okay.
They went from, a primarily inside zone team with some RPO stuff attached to it to a gap scheme.
Okay.
They run a lot of power, a lot of counter, buck sweep. They'll pull a guard almost every play. Very similar to us in our run scheme. It's stuff we know what gives us fits. So defensively, we kind of know how to give them fits. But that's kind of a two-edged sword because they know what causes them fits and they know what'll give us fits.
It's kind of a stylistic matchup of who can do what the best.
It's kind of funny. They run the same offensive kind of scheme as we do. They kind of run the same defense that we do.
Okay.
It's very similar styles. They'll switch it between an odd front and an even front on defense. They'll walk backers up. They'll blitz people left and right. So it's one of those things that's like we've got to come ready to play. He was 55 last year, but he's 44 this year. They'll line him up at tight end and run behind him, and I don't blame them. The kid's a stud. He's probably the best defensive lineman we'll see all year. I think he's a 3-time state medalist in wrestling.
So very physical kid, very strong kid.
Yeah, he's kind of that country strong.
Yeah.
Where he just latches onto you, and you're not getting away from him. So our D-line's got a little bit of a challenge this week to fight against that kid, and not let him just go where he wants you to. You got to fight him and not let him sling you around like a rag doll, and got to get your hands on him, get him extended. Don't let him get to your chest, because if he gets to your chest, it's over.
Yeah.
So, they've got some kids that can play some football. Their offensive scheme at quarterback, man, throws a great short game. He don't miss on anything within 10 yards. Like 5 to 10 yard balls, he's on time and on the money with them. So he'll make you pay if you try to play off coverage, and then he throws a good enough deep ball that if you jump up and try to jump something, they'll run a double move and he'll take a shot over the top on you. So it's one of those.
Definitely going to be one of the. It'll keep your secondary on their toes.
Yes. They throw a lot of different formations at you. They like the tight end, and they'll run trips to the one side, and they'll have the tight end down on the same side as the trips, him being that third receiver.
Okay.
And then they'll run a true trips, and they'll put him on as the tight end on the other side. So they'll kind of get you cheating to the trip side and run back to the behind him to the other way. They'll come out with a typical 2x2 set. We'll have 2 receivers on each side, but they'll take the tight end as one of them and put him on the line. So it's kind of like a tight end out of 2x2.
Mm-hmm.
They run a lot of counter off of that, making guys look silly, and we got to play discipline on the defensive line this week. If a guy pulls, go with him. He's going to take you to the play. But that's the hard part about getting 14 to 18-year-olds sometimes is knowing what to do and doing it's 2 different things.
Yeah.
So we got to be solid on the D-line this week. We can't get washed out of our gap, and cannot let 44 just take us where he wants to take you. You got to fight against that big old lug.
And as always, too, the end of every interview, you've got 3 keys to the game. 2 keys to the game on this week's edition because we already talked about one in the first half. But what are your 3 keys to the game this week when you take on Eagleton?
No dumb penalties. That's the first one. Let's eliminate the penalties because I think we've had 12, 13 personal fouls in 3 games. That's just stupidity.
Too many. Way too many.
It's a drive killer. Or it's, if we get a stop and they get it, that's a drive killer. It kills. Penalties kill you. Second thing's hold on to the daggum football. My gosh. I've never met it. I don't know if we've been in the concession stand between possessions and we're dunking our hands in the popcorn bucket. I don't know what it is, but we're about to put like some stickum, some hairspray, super glue, something on our hands so we hang on to the daggum football. And third one, we got to win the line of scrimmage. We got to be more physical than they are up front. Got to be able to control the line of scrimmage so that we can do what we want to do. Do I think we can? Yes. Will we is a different story. And so I'm challenging those offensive linemen again this week. Say, hey, we own the line of scrimmage. Let's go take control of it and let's go win this ball game.
It'll be a fun one Friday night.
I think it will be.
It'll be a physical one Friday night.
I think it will be.
And I think it'll be a good test for you going down the road too, because it's the first region game, as we mentioned, and it'll be the first litmus test for you this year, how you stack up against competition, because we've alluded to it. It's not an easy region.
No.
It doesn't get any easier. You've got Cumberland Gap, Happy Valley, South Greene, Hampton. Those 4 teams are just as difficult of a challenge as Eagleton is.
Yes. Hampton, South Greene are 2 great football teams. I know Hampton's not off to the start they want, but they're a team that gets better every single week. They're well coached, well disciplined, and they are going to get better as the season goes. South Greene's rolling right now. Happy Valley's doing a pretty good job where they're at. So our region teams don't get any easier for us. This is a game is just so important for us to get us on a starting path to accomplish the goals we want to accomplish.
And it starts this week too. Starts this Friday night, 7 o'clock here on the range.
It's also homecoming.
Oh, it's also homecoming. That's also a fun night for you as a coach.
Absolutely. I just love homecoming.
All coaches love homecoming.
It's my favorite game of the year.
It's homecoming week, though, as we see. We've got 2 behind us. It looks like it's construction day.
It was twin day.
Twin day, okay.
And I think we have a construction worker and a doofus.
Okay.
And I don't know what the other one that just walked up is, but we'll see.
We're getting a little bit of an audience now. That means school's out.
School's
means
out.
You've got practice right around the corner.
Absolutely.
It means you've got a JV game tonight too.
Yes.
Coach, it's Monday. It's always I'm not going to say worst day of the week.
No.
It's everybody's opinion that there's always worst days of the week, but it's definitely not Friday that Coach Jerry loves the most.
Hey, cheer boys, it's almost Friday.
It's almost Friday. It's closer to Friday than it was on Saturday.
Absolutely.
That's one thing you can say about it. But Coach, as always, appreciate you for sitting down with me once again.
No problem.
Thank you all for watching this week's edition of the Malone's Record Service Evan Monroe Show, presented by Critters Corner. Look forward to seeing y'all next week here on Grassroots Media.
Go Buffs.